Hello everyone, I am Ababa Abidje from Hawassa University, and I'm going to present my research work entitled in Enhancing Postpartum Family Planning Utilization through Integrating with Expanded Postpartum Program for Immunization in Sidama, which is a kind of experimental study. And here is a list of the research team members. And next is, this one is my presentation outline. As an introduction, family planning is, as everyone knows, is a key and an effective way of avoiding adverse maternal and perinatal outcomes. However, its unmet need is high, particularly in developing countries like Ethiopia. And that is why it's still a priority agenda, both globally and in Ethiopia. And the postpartum family planning particularly is very important, not only for limiting births, but extending the birth intervals. However, its unmet need is still high. On the other hand, immunization services are among the most widely utilized health services globally and in Ethiopia. For example, in Ethiopia, more than 80% of children received at least one vaccine. And also many women in Ethiopia, as it's known, are waiting for resumption of menstrual periods to start any contraceptive method utilization after birth. And these problems and these gaps can be fulfilled by extensive counseling. And this counseling can also improve family planning access and uptake during the postpartum period. Therefore, this study was designed to assess the effect of counseling women during the API visits to improve the uptake of postpartum family planning in Sidama region, Ethiopia. The objective of this study was to assess the effect of counseling for family planning at immunization units on contraceptive uptake during the extended postpartum period in Sidama region. This study was a before and after type of quasi-experimental study, which was conducted in purposely selected health centers in Sidama region from February 1st to August 14, 2020. As a pre-intervention, a baseline assessment of contraceptive utilization rate in the selected health centers was assessed, and then the intervention was commenced. The intervention includes the API workers, particularly the healthcare providers working in the API units, were trained for 3 days, and then they did the screening and counseling of mothers coming to these API units for family planning. And those voluntary women were referred to family planning units. On the other hand, if a woman didn't decide on that spot, they were recounseled by the subsequent API visits. And finally, as post-intervention phase, contraceptive prevalence rate was reassessed in that on the selected health facilities. All women in the extended postpartum period coming to the selected health centers for immunization services were included in this study, particularly for the pre-intervention phase. All women visiting the selected health facilities for at least 2 times during the pre-intervention period were included. And for the post-intervention evaluation, all women who have at least 2 visits for the immunization service after the initiation of the intervention were included. The sample size for this study was calculated using OpenEP statistical software under the assumptions of 80% power, 95% confidence interval, and 54.7% prevalence, contraceptive prevalence rate among mothers in the extended postpartum period in DESI. 15% increase were expected after the initiation of the intervention, and a one-to-one intervention proportion of ratio of pre and post-intervention were considered. And finally, considering 10% possible non-response rate, the sample size were 1,474, half for both parties. That is 737 for pre-groups and post-groups. As a sampling procedure, 8 health centers with better immunization coverage were purposely selected for this study, and the sample size was proportionally distributed for each health center, and the study subjects from each selected health centers were systematically were selected using systematic random sampling technique. As a data collection procedure, data was collected using pre-tested, structured, and interviewer administered questionnaire. For the purpose of data collection, 8 data collectors and 2 supervisors were recruited. As a data quality measure, we did pre-test, and training was provided for the data collectors and the supervisors, as well as during the course of data collection, regular meetings were held among the data collectors, supervisors, and investigators as well. As a data processing and analysis, data were entered to EPData version 3.1 and exported to SPSS version 22 for analysis. Text tables were used to display the findings of this study. And finally, multivariable logistic regression analysis were used under the adjustment for possible confounding variables. And finally, statistical significance was considered at p less than 0.05. As an ethical consideration, IRB clearance was obtained from the IRB office of the College of Medicine and Health Sciences, Hawassa University, and official permission was obtained from the former Sidama Zone, from the Hawassa City Administration Health Departments, as well as the respective waradas and the health centers. And finally, just prior to the interview, written informed consent was obtained from each participant. As a result, this study was just based on 1,422 participants, which consists of 718 for the pre-intervention group and 704 for the post-intervention phase, which indicates the overall response rate of 96.5%. As a socio-demographic characteristics of the participants, our participants were in the age range of 15 to 50 years, and the mean age of the participants were 25.7% for the pre-intervention group and 26.5% for years for post-intervention groups. And 86.4% of the mothers in the pre-intervention group and 86.3% of the mothers in the post-intervention group attended at least primary level of education. And here is a table detailing the social demographic characteristics of our participants. The childbirth and reproductive health related information is the participants around 2/3 were multiparous, that's 63.6% of the pre-intervention group, and 69% of the post-intervention group were multiparous in parity. And only 42.3% of the mothers in the pre-intervention group and 39.6% of the mothers in the post-intervention group were having postnatal follow-up after the delivery of the recent child. And here the table details the childbirth and reproductive characteristics of the participants, and you can have a look over here. The family planning utilization rate, actually for the pre-intervention group, it was 72.7%, while it was around 91.9% after the commencement of the intervention. which is about 26% increase from the baseline or the pre-intervention assessment. Particularly, the long-acting reversible contraceptive utilization rate was remarkably increased by this intervention, which was increased from 15.9% to 27.8%. And the short-acting was also increased. And here is a table detailing the contraceptive utilization in the study area. What was the effect of counseling on the postpartum contraceptive uptake, which is our main concern? In this study, nearly a six times higher odds of using postpartum contraceptive was observed after adjusting for possible confounding factors listed here. This is really a significant increase in the postpartum family planning after the intervention. And the detailed bivariate and multivariable analysis is detailed in the table. As a discussion, a statistically significant increase in postpartum family planning utilization was observed in this study, which is consistent with the findings in studies conducted in Rwanda, Malawi, and Nigeria, which reported an increased postpartum family planning utilization by integrating it with the immunization services. Moreover, significantly increased postpartum family planning utilization was with family planning counseling during the postpartum care was reported in Jidda Ayana district, West Ethiopia, in Aksum, North Ethiopia, and in Durami, which is South Ethiopia. Another longitudinal study in Ethiopia was also concluded that integration of postpartum family planning counseling into postnatal care services is an effective means to increase the postpartum contraceptive uptake. This is because these contact points these points can give an additional time for a woman to be educated about the postpartum return of fertility. And they may be also have a time to encourage it to space and limit pregnancies by using effective contraceptives. As we all know, family planning counseling increases the intention to use postpartum contraceptives because counseling can provide factual information on the types, the safety, the sources of contraceptives, as well as the side effects and their management. This also, the counseling also increases the awareness and the acceptance of contraception. The counseling again allows to discuss challenges and preconditions for coming to shared decision making. That's why it helps clients to weigh the advantages and the disadvantages of family planning options. Finally, it can enhance the quality of women's contraceptive decision making. That's why it increases contraceptive utilization. Clients are more satisfied with their method of choice after adequately counseling. Counseling is also a means of promoting postpartum contraceptive services. As we all know, expressing side effects is a major factor or reason for not using contraceptives. And this can be at least minimized or avoided by counseling. As a conclusion, screening, counseling, and referring mothers for family planning services at the immunization units was statistically significant in increasing or enhancing contraceptive uptake during the extended postpartum period. Therefore, systematical screening, counseling, and referring all mothers visiting the immunization units to family planning services were recommended. And we strongly recommend large-scale studies to confirm the applicability of this finding in the larger community. Here is a part of some of our references used in the development of this study. And finally, I would like to acknowledge the Hausa University College of Medicine and Health Sciences for technical support, and Gender Health Ethiopia for financial and technical support, the former Sidama Zone and Hawassa City Administration Health Departments, the Worada Health Bureaus, as well as the participant health centers, and finally the study participants. And I would like to thank you for your attention.